The massive space station hung in the void like a metal flower, its arms reaching out into the darkness between stars. Kepler Station was neutral ground, built by 7 different alien races who had agreed long ago that some places should belong to no one. Today it would host what the Galactic Council believed would be humanity's final surrender. Ambassador Dae-ho Kim walked through the station's corridors with calm steps. His dark suit was simple compared to the flowing robes and gleaming armor worn by the alien diplomats they passed. Behind him walked Captain So-Ra Park, her hand resting casually near her sidearm, and Dr. Woo-Jin Lee, carrying a data pad that contained information the aliens would never see. The humans had been traveling for 3 weeks to reach this meeting. The council had made them wait, of course. It was a power play, meant to show humanity how small they were in the grand scheme of galactic politics. Dae-ho had used the time well, studying the station's layout and watching the alien delegations. Knowledge was always useful. They entered the Grand Council chamber, a vast dome filled with floating platforms for each race. At the center sat the largest platform, occupied by Councillor Vextar of the Vorthak Empire. His species looked somewhat like humans, but with gray skin and eyes that glowed with an inner light. He wore ceremonial armor that probably cost more than most human starships. The other council members sat on smaller platforms arranged in a circle. Each represented a different alien civilization that had joined together to rule most of the known galaxy. They had been the dominant powers for over 1,000 years. Humanity had only reached the stars 50 years ago. Vextar stood as the humans approached their assigned platform, the smallest one in the chamber. His voice carried easily through the dome's acoustics. Representatives of the human species, you have been summoned to receive the terms of your integration into galactic civilization. Dae-ho bowed slightly, just enough to show respect without showing weakness. Councillor Vextar, honored members of the council, we are here to listen. The Vorthak leader smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp to be friendly. Listen well, humans. Your species has expanded beyond your home system without proper authorization. You have established colonies in sectors that border our territories. You have built ships and weapons without consulting the established powers. This cannot continue. High Sage Clymoth of the Ethereals spoke next, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Her species looked like tall, thin humans made of light and mist. Young races often make such mistakes. We do not blame you for your ignorance, but ignorance is no excuse for continued defiance of galactic law. War Prime Guttural of the Krog Horde slammed a massive fist on his platform's railing. The Krog looked like walking mountains of muscle and bone, with tusks jutting from their lower jaws. Humans fight like children with sticks. Your weapons are weak. Your ships are slow. You should be grateful we offer terms instead of conquest. Dae-ho listened to each speaker in turn. The Zenthari Trade Collective spoke of economic regulations humanity had violated. The Plasma Brotherhood demanded access to human industrial facilities. The hive mind of Kethmara buzzed about territorial boundaries their species had crossed. The Crystal Dominions sang in harmonics about resources humanity was extracting without permission. Each alien race had complaints. Each had demands. All of them spoke to humans as if they were children who had wandered into adult business. Captain Park shifted slightly behind Dae-ho, her trained eyes scanning the chamber for threats. She had studied the files on each species present. The Vorthak had conquered 12 star systems in the last century. The Krog had wiped out 3 younger races entirely. The Ethereals spoke of wisdom but had enslaved entire populations with their mental powers. These were not benevolent rulers concerned with justice. Dr. Lee kept his expression neutral as he listened to the accusations and demands. His datapad contained intelligence reports that would shock the council if they knew what humanity had learned about their civilizations, but those secrets would remain hidden, at least for now. Vextar raised his hand for silence. Enough. Let us speak plainly of terms. First, humanity will withdraw from all disputed territories immediately. This includes the Outer Rim colonies you have established without permission. Second, all human military vessels will be reduced to a defensive patrol force of no more than 50 ships. Your current fleet of 400 vessels is far too large for a junior species. Third, humanity will share all technological advances with the Council for approval before implementation. Your fusion drives and kinetic weapons may seem advanced to you, but they are crude by galactic standards. We will help you develop proper technology. Fourth, human trade will be conducted only through Council-approved channels. Your independent trading posts violate established commercial law. Fifth, humanity will contribute 30% of your industrial output to Council projects. This is a modest tax for the protection and guidance we provide. The terms continued for another hour. Each demand was delivered with the tone of a parent speaking to a disobedient child. The aliens clearly believed they were being generous by allowing humanity to exist at all. Sora felt her jaw tighten as the demands grew more outrageous. They wanted humanity to become a puppet state, dependent on alien approval for every decision. Her people had not struggled to reach the stars, only to bow to these arrogant creatures. Wu Jin's mind cataloged each demand, comparing it to the intelligence his teams had gathered over the decades. The aliens thought they knew everything about humanity, but they had only seen what humans wanted them to see. The real scope of human civilization, the true extent of their technology, the actual size of their military forces, all of this remained hidden behind carefully constructed facades. When Vextar finally finished speaking, the chamber fell silent. The alien counselors waited for humanity's response, with expressions ranging from bored confidence to barely concealed contempt. Daeho stood slowly. He had been chosen as humanity's representative not just for his diplomatic skills, but for his ability to remain calm under pressure. Today would test that ability to its limits. Counselor Vextar, honored council members, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the dome. We have listened to your terms with great attention. And, Vextar prompted, clearly expecting immediate acceptance. Daeho looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each alien representative. Some returned his gaze with amusement, others with impatience, none with respect. Humanity respectfully declines. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. For a moment, nobody moved. The aliens seemed unable to process what they had just heard. Vextar was the first to recover. Declines? You cannot decline. These are not negotiations, human. These are terms of surrender. Then we are not surrendering, Daeho replied simply. War Prime Guttural roared with laughter. Foolish humans! Do you think your 400 ships can stand against our combined fleets? We have 10,000 vessels between us. High Sage Clymoth's voice took on a pitying tone. Young ambassador, surely you understand the mathematics of your situation. Your species lacks the power to resist our will. Daeho nodded to his companions. Sora and Wu Jin flanked him as he prepared to leave. Perhaps we do lack the power to resist your will, but we will not submit to it voluntarily. He turned toward the chamber's exit. His companions followed without looking back. Wait, Vextar called out. You cannot simply leave. We demand an answer. Daeho paused at the threshold. I have given you our answer, counselor. Good day. The three humans walked out of the council chamber, leaving 7 alien civilizations staring after them in shock. Behind them, angry voices rose in a dozen different languages as the council tried to understand how their perfectly reasonable demands had been refused. On the observation deck of their small transport ship, Daeho looked out at the stars. Sora joined him, her expression grim. They'll come for us now, she said. Yes, Daeho agreed. They will. Wu Jin appeared beside them, his datapad glowing with encrypted messages. The signal has been sent. All commands are implementing Protocol 7. Then we are ready, Daeho said quietly. Their ship undocked from Kepler Station and jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity's Declaration of Independence to the waiting galaxy. Behind them, the Council of 7 began planning what they believed would be a short and decisive war against an inferior species. They were wrong about many things. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the humans departed Kepler Station. Representatives from 7 civilizations gathered on their respective homeworlds, their images projected into a shared virtual space that sparkled with alien technologies. Counselor Vextar paced within his projection field on the Vorthak capital world of Dominion Prime. His gray skin had darkened with anger, and his glowing eyes burned brighter than usual. Around him, the crystal spires of his people's greatest city reached toward a purple sky, symbols of Vorthak power that had intimidated countless species over the millennia. Impossible, he muttered for the dozenth time. No species has ever simply walked away from council terms, not in 800 years of galactic governance. High Sage Clymoth materialized from her meditation chambers on the ethereal world of transcendence. Her form shimmered like moonlight on water as she spoke. Perhaps we misjudge their intelligence. Some primitive species lack the cognitive capacity to understand complex political realities. War Prime Guttural's massive form dominated his projection from the fortress world of Bloodstone. Behind him, younger Krog warriors sharpened weapons and roared battle songs that echoed through the virtual meeting space. Intelligence means nothing when facing superior force. We should have conquered them immediately instead of offering generous terms. Trademaster Kixnall of the Zenthari Collective spoke from his orbital marketplace above New Prophet. His insectoid features clicked and buzzed as his translated words filled the virtual space. Our economic projections showed human compliance was 97% probable. Their refusal suggests either insanity or hidden assets we failed to detect. The Plasma Brotherhood's representative, Flamespeaker Pyrian, burned brightly from his position within a stellar corona. His energy-based species communicated through controlled electromagnetic pulses. Scan records show only primitive fusion technology and simple kinetic weapons. No evidence of advanced capabilities. Queen Voice Zaxth spoke for the hive mind of Kethamara from their breeding world of New Colony. Her chitinous form was surrounded by thousands of smaller drones that moved in perfect synchronization. The hive has observed human behavior for 37 years. They display typical mammalian pack loyalty, but lack strategic depth. Finally, Harmony singer Christek of the Crystal Dominion chimed in from the Silicon Gardens of Resonance. His crystalline body refracted light into beautiful patterns as he sang his words in perfect musical tones. Mathematical analysis indicates humans possess insufficient resources for sustained resistance. Their industrial capacity rates as minimal on galactic scales. Vexitar stopped pacing and addressed the assembled council. Then we are agreed. The humans have made a grave error in judgment. They mistake our patience for weakness. What intelligence do we have on their actual capabilities? Asked Clymoth. Guttural's tusks gleamed as he smiled. Krog scouts have monitored human space for decades. They possess approximately 400 combat vessels, mostly destroyers and light cruisers. Their largest ships barely qualify as heavy cruisers by our standards. Technological assessment? Inquired Kixanal. Pyrian's flames danced with amusement. Primitive fusion drives that move slower than our oldest cargo haulers. Kinetic weapons that fire metal slugs like ancient artillery. Energy shields so weak they cannot stop basic plasma fire. Population estimates? Christek sang. 20 billion across 43 star systems, buzzed Queen Voice Zaxth. Scattered colonies with minimal fortifications. Most worlds appear to be agricultural or mining operations. Vexitar nodded with satisfaction. A minor inconvenience at best. How long to assemble a response fleet? The Vorthak 3rd Battle Group can be ready within 10 standard days, he announced. 200 ships should be more than sufficient to demonstrate the consequences of defiance. Guttural pounded his armrest. Krog warriors grow restless. We volunteer to lead the assault. This requires precision, not brutality, Clymoth interjected smoothly. The goal is to bring them to compliance, not extinction. Dead workers produce no tribute. The ethereals are correct. Vextar agreed. We will target their outer colonies first. A few destroyed worlds should convince them of their error. The humans will come crawling back to accept our original terms within a month. Kixanal's mandibles clicked rapidly. Which colony should serve as the example? Vexitar accessed the intelligence files floating in his projection space. Human star maps appeared, showing the extent of their tiny empire. Here, he said, highlighting a system near human space's edge. New Busan, agricultural world, 2.3 million population, minimal defenses, perfect for demonstrating. Superior force without excessive resource expenditure. Intelligence reports show only a few patrol boats in that system, added Pyrion. Local defense grid consists of outdated missile platforms, should fall within hours. Excellent, Vextar declared. The Vorthak 3rd Battle Group will eliminate New Busan as an example. Survivors will carry word back to their government. When they realize resistance is futile, they will accept whatever terms we choose to offer. The other council members voiced their approval. This would be a textbook operation. Overwhelming force applied to a soft target, demonstrating galactic power to an upstart species. What of the human ambassador's demeanor during negotiations? Asked Klymeth. Did he seem to understand the gravity of his species' situation? Vextar considered the question. He appeared calm, almost prepared. But that was likely ignorance masquerading as confidence. Primitive species often failed to grasp the scale of forces arrayed against them. Or perhaps, suggested Guteral, he was simply too stupid to be afraid. Laughter rippled through the virtual meeting space. The idea that a species barely 50 years into spaceflight could pose any real threat to civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for centuries struck them as absurd. Speaking of intelligence, Kixnal interjected. Our trade monitoring has detected some unusual patterns in human commerce. What sort of patterns? Vextar asked. They appear to be purchasing large quantities of rare metals and industrial equipment, far more than their stated industrial capacity should require. Pyrion's flames flickered with confusion. Perhaps they are stockpiling for infrastructure development? Or, suggested Queen Voice Zaxth, they are simply inefficient in their resource utilization. Young species often waste materials through poor planning. Kristek's harmonic voice added a discordant note. There have also been reports of human ships in systems we believed were uninhabited. Long-range sensors detected fusion signatures in empty sectors. Exploration missions, Vextar dismissed. Humans are known for their curiosity about empty space. They probably think they can find unclaimed worlds to colonize. The Council spent another hour reviewing intelligence reports and finalizing their response. Every piece of data confirmed their assumptions. Humanity was a minor species that had grown beyond its proper place through luck and stubbornness. The correction would be swift and decisive. As the meeting concluded, each representative returned their attention to their home territories. Vextar immediately began issuing orders to the Vorthak 3rd Battle Group. Admiral Torgeth, his most experienced field commander, received detailed instructions for the new Busan operation. Standard intimidation protocol, Vextar explained, over the secure communication link. Arrive in force, demand surrender, eliminate military assets, bombard selected population centers. Leave enough survivors to spread word of our power. Understood, Counselor, Admiral Torgeth replied. His scarred features showed the confidence of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds. How much resistance do we expect? Minimal. Intelligence suggests perhaps a dozen patrol craft and some fixed defenses. Your battleships should overwhelm them easily. 3 days later, the Vorthak 3rd Battle Group departed Dominion Prime. 200 warships of various classes, from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts capable of cracking planets. At their head flew Admiral Torgeth's flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, a vessel that had broken the will of countless species. The journey to New Busan would take 1 week at maximum hyperspace velocity. Vextar used that time to prepare press releases for the galactic media networks. The destruction of New Busan would serve as both punishment for human defiance and warning to any other species considering similar foolishness. On the 6th day of their journey, Admiral Torgeth sent his final status report. Approaching New Busan system. All ships reporting ready for combat. Intelligence confirms minimal defensive presence. Victory is assured. Vextar smiled as he filed the message. Soon the upstart humans would learn their proper place in the galactic order. Their brief moment of defiance would become a cautionary tale told to other young species for generations. But deep in the intelligence files that the Vorthak had compiled over decades of observation, small discrepancies went unnoticed. Sensor, shadows that might have been clouds or might have been something else. Trade routes that seemed inefficient unless they were hiding something. Population figures that never quite matched the industrial output. The Galactic Council had made their Decision based on incomplete information. They were about to discover just how incomplete it really was. Admiral Minho Choi stood in the command center of Nubusan Defense Station, watching the tactical displays that showed empty space around the agricultural world his people called home. The station itself was hidden within an asteroid field, its hull covered in sensors and weapons that most aliens would mistake for mining equipment. 3 days earlier, the evacuation order had gone out across the system. 2 million civilians had been moved to underground shelters or evacuated to safe worlds deeper in human space. Only essential defense personnel remained, along with a few thousand volunteers who refused to leave their homes. Colonel Eunji Han monitored the ground-based defense systems from her bunker beneath New Busan's capital city. Around her, screens showed the positions of concealed missile sites, artillery batteries, and shield generators that had been built into the planet's surface over the past decade. To orbital scans, they looked like ordinary industrial facilities. Captain Tae Sung-yoon ran final checks on his fighter craft in a hangar carved into the side of a mountain. His ship appeared to be a simple patrol vessel, but beneath its ordinary hull lay experimental technology that would surprise anyone who tried to scan it too closely. Around him, 200 other pilots prepared for what they all knew would be the real test of human military doctrine. The Vorthak fleet arrived exactly when human intelligence had predicted. 200 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge, their massive forms bristling with weapons that could level cities. Admiral Torgeth's flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, took position at the center of the formation like a predator preparing to strike. Unknown vessels came. The transmission on standard galactic frequencies. "You are trespassing in Vorthak-claimed territory. Surrender immediately, or face the consequences of your defiance." Minho smiled grimly. The aliens were using speakers and translators designed for diplomatic meetings, not military operations. They still thought this would be a simple demonstration of superior force. "All civilian traffic, clear the system immediately," Admiral Torgeth continued. "Military vessels, power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is futile." On the surface of New Busan, a dozen patrol boats suddenly activated their engines and fled toward the outer system. Their crews transmitted panicked messages about overwhelming alien forces and begged for immediate evacuation. The Vorthak intercepted these transmissions and translated them with satisfaction. The humans were already breaking. "Follow those fleeing vessels," Torgeth ordered his destroyer squadrons. "Ensure none escape to carry intelligence back to human space." 24 Vorthak destroyers peeled off from the main formation and pursued the fleeing human ships. The patrol boats seemed barely capable of staying ahead of their pursuers, their fusion drives straining to maintain speed. The main Vorthak fleet advanced toward New Busan at a leisurely pace. Their sensors showed what they expected: a lightly defended agricultural world with some orbital stations and a few remaining patrol craft that seemed too afraid to flee. "Simple intimidation," Torgeth told his bridge crew. "Fire a few demonstration shots at their orbital facilities. When they see our power, they will surrender quickly enough." The first mistake the Vorthak made was assuming the fleeing patrol boats were actually trying to escape. Captain Tae-sung and his fellow pilots were leading the alien destroyers exactly where they wanted them, into a carefully prepared killing field. The asteroid belt around New Busan's outer moon had been seeded with weapons platforms disguised as mining equipment. As the pursuing Vorthak ships entered the field, these platforms suddenly came to life. Kinetic projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed slammed into the alien destroyers before their crews could even register the threat. The humans had learned long ago that energy shields, no matter how powerful, had trouble stopping objects with enough mass and velocity. 12 Vorthak destroyers died in the first salvo. Their energy shields flared and collapsed as tungsten rods punched through their hulls. The remaining dozen tried to retreat, but the human patrol boats had shed their disguises and revealed themselves as heavily armed gunships. "Contact! Contact!" Admiral Torgeth's communications officer shouted. "Destroyer Squadron 7 is under attack. Unknown weapons platforms in the asteroid field." But that was only the beginning. As the Vorthak main fleet approached New Busan, space around them began to shimmer. What appeared to be empty vacuums suddenly filled with ships as hundreds of human vessels dropped their cloaking fields. The alien fleet found themselves surrounded by a force 3 times their size. Sleek human destroyers, bulky carriers disgorging, swarms of fighters, and massive battleships that had somehow remained hidden until this moment. The careful Vorthak formation suddenly looked pitifully small. Impossible! Torgeth stared at his tactical displays in shock. Intelligence reported only 400 human ships in total. Sir, his sensor officer called out, I'm detecting over 600 vessels, and more are still decloaking. The humans had spent decades perfecting stealth technology that made their ships nearly invisible to most sensor systems. They had studied alien detection methods and developed countermeasures that turned their entire fleet into ghosts when they needed to be. Admiral Min Ho opened a communication channel to the Vorthak flagship. Vorthak vessels, this is Admiral Min Ho Choi of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately or we will demonstrate the consequences of threatening human civilians. Torgeth's gray skin flushed with rage. You dare demand our surrender? We are Vorthak. We have conquered worlds before your species learned to make fire. Then you should have learned not to underestimate your enemies, Min Ho replied calmly. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons. The Vorthak Admiral chose defiance. All ships, open fire. Show these primitives the power of the Vorthak Empire. The alien fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and missile swarms lit up the darkness between worlds. It was an impressive display of firepower that should have devastated any opposition. Instead, the humans demonstrated why they had spent so much time studying alien military doctrine. The Vorthak weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, between similar vessels using similar tactics. They were not prepared for human innovations. Swarms of human fighters, too small and fast for the alien point defense systems, attacked the Vorthak ships like angry insects. Their weapons were crude kinetic projectiles and short-range missiles, but they struck in overwhelming numbers from impossible angles. Human destroyers used their superior speed and maneuverability to stay outside the effective range of alien weapons while pounding the Vorthak ships with long-range kinetic strikes. The alien energy shields, designed to stop plasma and particle beams, proved much less effective against physical projectiles. But the real shock came when the human capital. Ships opened fire. Instead of energy weapons, they launched what appeared to be simple metal rods. These projectiles moved so fast they were barely visible on sensors, and when they struck, they hit with the force of small nuclear weapons. The Vorthak had never encountered relativistic kinetic weapons before. Their shields, designed to diffuse energy attacks, simply could not cope with the massive kinetic energy transfers. Ship after ship cracked open like eggs as tungsten spears punched through their hulls. Shields are failing, Torgeth's tactical officer reported. Their weapons are penetrating our defenses. How is this possible? The Admiral demanded. These are primitive kinetics, not advanced energy weapons. Captain Taesung's voice cut across the communication channels as his fighters swarmed around the Vorthak flagship. Sometimes the old ways work best, Admiral, especially when your enemy expects something else. The human fighters were demonstrating another innovation, networked artificial intelligence that allowed them to coordinate attacks with inhuman precision. Every movement was calculated to maximum effect, every shot placed exactly where it would cause the most damage. Colonel Yunji activated the planetary defense systems as some Vorthak ships tried to bombard New Busan itself. Surface-based particle accelerators, hidden in what appeared to be industrial complexes, sent streams of accelerated matter into space. The alien ships found themselves under fire from the planet they had come to conquer. The battle lasted only 4 hours. Of the 200 Vorthak ships that had entered the New Busan system, 23 managed to escape back to hyperspace. The rest became expanding clouds of debris that would orbit the human world as monuments to alien arrogance. Admiral Torgeth's flagship was among the survivors, but barely. His ship's hull was cracked in a dozen places, most of his weapons were destroyed, and his crew was in shock. As they fled toward Vorthak space, he tried to comprehend what had just happened. "Get me a communication link to Counselor Vexitar," he ordered. "Emergency priority." When the link established, Vexitar's image appeared on the flagship's main screen. The counselor's expression changed from confident expectation to horrified disbelief as he saw the condition of Torgeth's ship. "Report," Vextar demanded. "The humans," Torgeth said, his voice hollow with shock. "They were waiting for us. Hundreds of ships, hidden somehow. Weapons we've never seen before. Tactics that made no sense until it was too late." The emergency council session convened within hours of Admiral Torgeth's devastating report from New Busan. 7 alien civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for centuries found themselves facing an impossible reality. A species they had dismissed as primitive had just destroyed most of a Vorthak battle fleet. Counselor Vexitar's image flickered with barely controlled rage as he addressed the virtual assembly. Behind him on Dominion Prime, Vorthak military commanders scurried about like insects, preparing for a war they no longer understood. 177 ships destroyed. Our finest admiral barely escaped with his life. The humans were ready for us. War Prime Guttural's massive form dominated his projection from Bloodstone. "Impossible! Our scouts monitored human space for decades. 400 ships maximum. Primitive weapons, weak shields. Then explain how they fielded over 600 vessels with advanced stealth capabilities," Vextar snapped. "Explain their kinetic weapons that punch through Vorthak shields like they were made of paper." High Sage Clymoth's ethereal form shimmered with confusion. "Perhaps we misinterpreted the sensor data. Young species often develop along unexpected technological paths." Trademaster Kicksnall's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed economic data. "I have been reviewing human trade patterns over the past 50 years. The numbers never made sense, but we assumed they were simply inefficient. Now I believe we were seeing only a fraction of their actual industrial capacity." Intelligence operative Subin Kang sat in a darkened room aboard a Zenthari trade station, listening to alien communications through devices that appeared to be simple entertainment systems. For 15 years, she had lived among the galaxy's various species, gathering information that would have shocked the Council if they knew how much humans really understood about their civilizations. Her encrypted report reached Earth Command within hours of the New Busan battle. "The aliens are panicking," she transmitted. "Their entire understanding of human capabilities was based on what we wanted them to see. They're calling emergency sessions and mobilizing additional fleets, but they still don't comprehend the full scope of their error." Fleet Admiral Young-Soo Jang received Subin's report in the hidden command center beneath Luna's surface. Around him, holographic displays showed the real extent of human military forces. Shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, entire fleets stationed, in systems the aliens believed were empty. Technological advances that had been carefully concealed for decades. "Phase 2, he announced to his staff. "All concealment protocols are lifted. Begin full mobilization of the Home Defense Fleet." Director Haiwan Ko coordinated the intelligence operation from her facility deep within Earth's ocean trenches. Her teams had been infiltrating alien societies since first contact, learning languages, studying cultures, and identifying weaknesses that could be exploited when the time came. "Psychological profiles confirm our predictions," she reported to the Joint Command Staff. "The Vorthak respond to defeat with rage and escalation. The Krog will demand immediate retaliation. The Ethereals will try to maintain calm, but will be overruled by the more aggressive species." The Council's response was exactly what human analysts had predicted. Within days, mobilization orders went out to all 7 civilizations. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history began converging on the borders of human space. But as alien fleets gathered, disturbing intelligence reports began filtering back to the Council homeworlds. Human colonies that should have been easy targets were mysteriously empty when alien scouts arrived. Worse, some of those supposedly abandoned worlds had defensive systems that destroyed entire reconnaissance squadrons. The Krog sent a battle group to attack the human mining world of New Seoul. They found empty cities and abandoned industrial facilities, until their ships entered orbit and discovered that the abandoned facilities were actually camouflaged weapons platforms. Half the Krog fleet was destroyed before they could retreat. The Plasma Brotherhood attempted to raid human shipping lanes, expecting to find poorly defended cargo vessels. Instead, they encountered merchant ships with military-grade shields. and weapons that could outfight most alien escort vessels. What the aliens had assumed was a civilian merchant marine turned out to be a disguised auxiliary navy. Queen Voice Zizakth of the Hive Mind received reports that made no sense. Our scouts report massive human fleets in systems our star charts show as empty. How can they maintain such forces in uninhabited regions? The answer came from Harmony Singer Christek's deep space monitoring stations. Long-range sensors are detecting artificial structures in what we believed were asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres. The humans appear to have been building hidden installations throughout their territory for decades. Admiral Youngsu reviewed the tactical reports from his command center. The alien fleets were massing exactly where human intelligence had predicted they would. Every move the Council made had been anticipated and prepared for. They still think they're fighting a conventional war, he explained to his staff. Ship against ship, fleet against fleet. They don't understand that we've been studying them for 50 years, learning their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. Captain Subin continued her intelligence work even as the galaxy mobilized for war. Her network of human operatives, carefully placed throughout alien society over the course of decades, fed a constant stream of information back to Earth Command. The aliens never suspected that their communications were being intercepted. Their fleet movements tracked, their military doctrines analyzed and countered. The Vorthak Third Fleet is massing at Sigma Draconis, she reported. The Krog Second Horde is staging from the Kepler system. Ethereal meditation ships are joining the Zenthari merchant fleet disguised as cargo vessels. The Plasma Brotherhood is preparing to attack our supply lines while the Crystal Dominion provides sensor support. Each piece of intelligence was exactly what human planners had expected. The aliens were following their established patterns, using tactics that had worked against other species for centuries. They had no idea that their enemies had spent decades learning how to counter every strategy in their arsenal. The first major engagement came at the outer rim colony of New Daegu. A combined alien force of over 800 ships arrived to find what appeared to be a standard human colonial defense. A few dozen patrol boats and some orbital stations. The reality was very different. As the alien fleet approached, the orbital stations revealed themselves to be massive weapons platforms. The few dozen patrol boats were joined by hundreds of ships that decloaked from positions throughout the system, and the planet itself began launching kinetic projectiles from surface-based mass drivers that had been built into what appeared to be mining facilities. But the most shocking revelation came when human ships demonstrated their true speed. Alien sensors had always shown human vessels as slower than most galactic standard designs. That was because the humans had been running their drives at minimum power, hiding their actual capabilities. When the new Daegu defense fleet engaged at full power, their ships moved faster than anything the aliens had ever encountered. Human destroyers darted between alien capital ships like fighters, while human fighters moved so quickly they were nearly impossible to target. How are they achieving these velocities? Demanded Flame Speaker Pyrion, as his ships struggled to keep up with human forces. The answer lay in fusion drive technology that was far more advanced than human traders had ever revealed. While aliens relied on complex antimatter systems and exotic energy sources, humans had perfected simple fusion to a degree that produced more power than most alien advanced drives. But speed was only part of the human advantage. Their weapons systems had been designed specifically to counter alien defenses. Every type of shield used by the 7 Council races had been studied and analyzed. Human kinetic weapons were calibrated to penetrate Vorthak energy shields. Human plasma systems were tuned to frequencies that disrupted ethereal mental coordination. Human electronic warfare was designed to jam hive mind communications. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their weaknesses better than they knew themselves. Every tactic they tried had been anticipated. Every weapon they deployed faced a perfect counter. Every strategy they implemented played directly into human hands. They're not fighting like a new species, War Prime Guttural growled after his forces were routed at New Daegu. They fight like they've been planning this war for decades. Because they have been, Admiral Torgeth said quietly. He had been studying the human tactics since his defeat at New Busan. Everything they showed us, everything they told us, everything we learned about them, it was all calculated to make us underestimate them. The truth was beginning to dawn on the Galactic Council. Humanity had not stumbled into spaceflight and expanded randomly through luck and determination. They had been conducting a systematic intelligence operation from the moment they encountered alien civilization. Every trade agreement had been an opportunity to study alien technology. Every diplomatic meeting had been a chance to assess alien psychology. Every cultural exchange had been used to map alien society and identify potential weaknesses. The final phase of what historians would later call the Revelation War began 6 months after the disaster at New Busan. The Galactic Council had assembled the largest military force in recorded history, over 5,000 warships from 7 different civilizations, supported by millions of troops and enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. They launched their offensive expecting to crush human resistance within weeks. Instead, they discovered that everything they thought they knew about humanity was a carefully constructed lie. President Sang-Ho On addressed the human colonies from the hidden command center on Luna. His words carried across dozens of star systems by quantum communication networks the aliens had never detected. Citizens of humanity, the masquerade is over. For 50 years, we have allowed our enemies to believe we were weak. Today, we show them the truth. The revelation began at the Vanguard system, where the Vorthak Empire launched their primary assault with over 1,000 ships. They expected to find a lightly defended industrial world that would crumble under overwhelming force. Instead, they found a fortress system that had been decades in the making. General Mi Young Seo coordinated the defense from her command ship, the hidden dreadnought Indomitable Will. Around her, tactical displays showed the true scope of human military preparation. All stations execute Protocol Omega. Show them what we really built out here. The Vanguard system erupted with defensive installations that materialized from what had appeared to be empty space. Massive battle stations, hidden inside artificial asteroids, revealed themselves as their camouflage dropped away. Weapons platforms, disguised as industrial facilities, opened up with firepower that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever seen. But the real shock came when the human fleet revealed itself. Not the few hundred ships the aliens expected, but over 2,000 vessels that had been hiding throughout the system using advanced stealth technology. The humans had built an entire shadow navy while pretending to be a minor spacefaring civilization. Counselor Vextar watched his grand offensive disintegrate from his command ship at the edge of the system. "Impossible," he whispered, as human dreadnoughts, each larger than his own flagship, emerged from concealment and began systematically destroying his forces. "Sir," his sensor officer called out in a voice tight with panic, "I'm detecting similar fleet concentrations throughout human space. They've been hiding thousands of ships." The pattern repeated across every front. At New Sol, the Krog Horde encountered human battle groups that fought with precision and coordination that made their own warrior culture look primitive. At the outer colonies, ethereal meditation ships found themselves facing human vessels equipped with psychic dampening fields that neutralized their mental advantages. The Plasma Brotherhood discovered that human ships carried shielding specifically, designed to deflect energy attacks. The Zenthari Collective learned that human electronic warfare capabilities could crash their computer systems from across a star system. The hive mind of Kethmara found their communications being jammed by technology they could not understand. But the most devastating revelation came when the aliens realized how thoroughly they had been infiltrated. Intelligence operative Subin Kong broadcast her true identity to the galaxy, revealing that humans had been living among alien civilizations for decades, learning their secrets and reporting back to Earth Command. Every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange, every diplomatic meeting, she announced from her position aboard what the Zenthari had thought was one of their own ships. "We were there, watching, learning, preparing for this day." The psychological impact was catastrophic. The alien species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries suddenly realized they had been outmaneuvered by a civilization they had dismissed as primitive. Worse, they began to suspect how many of their trusted alien associates might actually be human infiltrators in disguise. Admiral Youngsu launched the counteroffensive from his true command ship, the massive vessel Humanity's Resolve. It was a dreadnought-class ship that dwarfed anything in the alien fleets, armed with weapons that demonstrated the true advancement of human technology. "All fleets, commence Operation Reversal," he ordered. "Time to carry the war to their territory." Human Forces that had been hiding in empty systems and asteroid fields suddenly emerged and began attacking alien supply lines. Worlds the aliens had considered secure found themselves under assault by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. The human strategy was revealed in all its brilliance. While the aliens had been concentrating their forces for massive frontal assaults, humans had been positioning smaller, more mobile forces throughout galactic space. They could strike anywhere, anytime, while their enemies were locked into predictable patterns of conventional warfare. Director Hyawan Ko's intelligence network proved its worth as human forces demonstrated uncanny knowledge of alien movements and strategies. Every alien commander found his plans anticipated, his weaknesses exploited, his forces outmaneuvered by enemies who seemed to know his every thought. They know us better than we know ourselves, War Prime Guttural admitted after his third defeat, in as many weeks. How is this possible? The answer came from captured human intelligence files that revealed the scope of humanity's preparation. For 50 years, while pretending to be peaceful traders and curious explorers, humans had been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. They had studied alien psychology, analyzed alien military doctrine, mapped alien political structures, and identified every weakness in the systems that held galactic civilization together. They knew which species feared each other, which alliances were fragile, which leaders could be corrupted or intimidated. President On's next address to the galaxy demonstrated this knowledge perfectly. "Citizens of the Vorthak Empire," he said, speaking in perfect Vorthak and addressing internal political tensions that most aliens didn't know existed, "ask your leaders why they spend your resources on foreign wars while your outer colonies starve." Similar messages went out to every alien civilization, crafted to exploit specific cultural fears and political divisions. The humans weren't just fighting a military war. They were waging psychological warfare on a scale that threatened to tear galactic civilization apart from within. The tide turned completely at the Battle of Kepler Station, where humanity had first rejected the Council's terms. Admiral Young-Soo brought the full human fleet out of hiding. Over 8,000 ships that represented the true scope of human industrial capacity. The aliens found themselves facing an enemy that outnumbered them nearly 2-to-1. Using technology that was generations ahead of their own, led by commanders who knew their every weakness. The battle lasted 18 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the combined alien fleet. Ambassador Dae-Ho Kim returned to Kepler Station, but this time as the representative of the victorious power. The same council chamber where he had been dismissed as the representative of a primitive species now hosted the surrender negotiations of 7 ancient civilizations. Counselor Vextar sat in the defendant's chair, his gray skin pale with defeat. Around him, the other alien leaders waited to learn their fate from the species they had so grossly underestimated. "Honored council members," Dae-Ho began, his voice calm and professional despite the magnitude of the moment. "Humanity is prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "What are your demands?" Vextar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dae-Ho consulted a datapad that contained terms very different from those the aliens had offered humanity. First, all alien military forces will withdraw to their respective home systems and remain there under human monitoring. Second, the Galactic Council is dissolved. Governance of interstellar affairs will be conducted through a new body with humanity holding ultimate authority. Third, all alien civilizations will contribute 40% of their industrial output to reparations for the unprovoked attack on human territory. Fourth, alien technology development will be subject to human oversight to ensure it is not used for military purposes against human interests. Fifth, alien trade and expansion will be conducted only with human approval through designated channels. The terms continued for an hour, each demand more comprehensive than the last. The aliens who had once ruled the galaxy found themselves accepting the same kind of subjugation they had tried to impose on humanity. When the formal surrender was signed, Vextar looked up at the human ambassador with something that might have been respect. "How long?" he asked. "How long were you planning this?" Dae-Ho considered the question carefully. "From the moment we encountered your civilization, Counselor. You assumed we were like you, seeking to dominate or be dominated. You never considered that we were simply trying to determine if coexistence was possible. Your actions during the peace negotiations gave us our answer. A species that demands submission from others cannot be trusted to share the galaxy as equals. General, Mi-young took over administration of the former Galactic Council territories, implementing a new system of governance that placed human interests first while allowing alien civilizations to maintain their internal autonomy.